Good evening, folks. This is Diamond from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project on Monday evening, 9:29 p.m. Mountain Time, September 2nd, 2017. It's the first talk in a series on cosmic catastrophe and the Great Year. Now, I've been studying this since 1989, so I have quite a knowledge and a background as far as the geology is concerned and the precessional cycle. And what I studied was the rocks, the sedimentary rocks all over the world show a 20,000 year cycle of these deep, shallow events, repeating again and again throughout all basins, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow. And they're packaged in these 100,000 year cycles. Here's a 100,000 year package, a 100,000 year package, which correspond to the Milankovitch cyclicity. Okay, I'll show you another shot. Here's another, these are the precessional cycles, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow. And you can see how there's a package of them here and here. Now what does that all, so each of these is a cataclysm, a great year. They represent one single great year, which the ancients knew about. Now the ancients knew about the great year, and you could study for decades. There's so much information on this. But what you're going to get is paltry information. The Great Year, or the Platonic Year, is a precession of the equinoxes, 25,800. And they attribute it to Josephus 600 years ago, or other people during the Roman Empire. Aristarchus of Samos, and blah, blah, blah. But if you get down to brass tacks, there's a book called Hamlet's Mill. Here they talk about the great year in the Bible. I'll leave you links to all this. Judah and the Lion, 6480. That's a quarter of the great year. Even as Christ will, shall the nations end of the 90 days, or age of 6480. Okay, that's one quarter, 6480 of a great year. The great year being a precession of the equinoxes, 25,920. I think I had a link to Hamlet's Mill here. Yeah, there's going to be a commentary on Hamlet's Mill. So this book came out in 69. And what these guys, Giorgio Santayana and Von Deschen, he's a professor of history at MIT, and Von Deschen, a professor of history at Frankfurt. What they found is that the precession of the equinoxes, the numerology, the astrology is built into the sacred geometry of ancient cultures, time immemorial. The book is very thick and very difficult to read, and some of the revelations there are amazing. And what you're going to read in here is absolutely groundbreaking and enlightening. And I could do a whole video on it, but I really highly recommend you read this commentary on Hamlet's Mill, which I will include. Let's get back to the Great Year and what I want to get at here. There's different versions of it all through ancient times. Here we have the Yuga cycle. This is where we are right now here, Pisces going into the age of Aquarius. This is more of a psychic movement type of great year, where the Hyperborean epic was before the Great Catastrophe, then the Lemurian epic, to the Atlantean epic, and then the Aryan epic. And here we are right here at the dawn and the cross of the resurrection. I'll include links to all of these cosmic years. But the one I want to talk about is the sacred geometry one that has to do with cosmic catastrophe, which is talked about by Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock and others, and me especially. I'm a specialist in this, and I've been studying this since 1989. And every 25,920 years, there is a global catastrophe that results in a complete reworking of the sedimentary environments on the Earth, which means and typically relates in the rocks that I've studied, an abrupt deepening of the oceans from tens of meters to hundreds of meters. It's a huge deepening, 10 feet to 1,000 feet at each of these events. And in the middle of one of these events, so here's the immediate deepening event, and this is a deep facies with shale and sand, and then it shallows up to a shallow environment. and usually there's a plane in between the two. So there's another horizon in the middle of the precessional cycle, which leads to a whole different set of environments, which we see again and again. Deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow, deep, shallow. Again and again and again. We see it all over the world, in every basin, basin-wide, all over, since the beginning of time. Time immemorial. Now, if you don't know about the work of Randall Carlson at Sacred Geometry, you will now. SacredGeometryInternational.com. I'll leave you links to all this. He's working it out just like I am. So every 25,000 years, there is a major catastrophe, and right at the other cusp, there is another major catastrophe. Sea level rise here and sea level fall here. Now, what we've determined on these dots is that these correspond to Ice Age events, Heinrich events, the Greenland Blitz event. These are all climatic events. And up here, we've determined that these catastrophic events, events that could have destroyed civilizations at different times in the past during the Great Year, all occur at the same exact time. And they're all climatic events. Okay? You following me? They're called Heinrich events. I'll leave you links to this. Boom, 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 boom. And these are climatic events, natural phenomenon which large armadas of icebergs break off. Or they're called Danskad-Oeschger events. And we have good evidence of these Danskad-Oeschger events. And Bond events, North Atlantic ice rafting. Great evidence of these Bond events. These events are happening within one precession of the equinoxes. Okay, now what is the precession of the equinoxes? What is the great year? What is this great year we're speaking of? It refers to the observable phenomenon of the rotation of the heavens, a cycle which spans a period of approximately 25,920 years, over which time the constellations, right here, appear to be moving around the circumference of an area. This rotational effect takes 25,000 years. Okay, rotate around the sun, taking turns at rising behind the sun on a vernal equinox. So I'll leave you links to this. So the precession of the equinox is basically just simply the Earth wobbling upon its axis because of the celestial mechanics of our solar system, namely the Earth and its position relative to the other planets, the sun, and the moon. Milankovitch did the mathematics on this, so you can Google him, and I studied his work back in the 90s. So one wobble is one precessional cycle, is one great year, and you can think of it as a 25,000 year slow motion of the northern axis of the Earth on like a wobbling top. So for 12,500 years, we're pointing away from the sun, and for 12,500 years, we're pointing towards the sun, but it's a continuous wobble. And each of these wobbles is a great year, and each of the major flexure points is when major cataclysms happen in the form of major sea level rise and then a major sea level fall event. And this has been happening from, as far as I've studied, time immemorial, basin-wide, worldwide, forever. I found it in the Precambrian, the Cambrian, the Silurian, the Devonian, the Mississippian, everywhere. Everywhere I looked, it was, sure enough. And as time progresses, more and more information comes out that connects the mythology with the reality and the science. And I'm going to try to piece it all together here moving forward with these videos on cosmic catastrophe and what the ancients were trying to tell us with this information that they encoded into their buildings, into their structures, and that we now have been passed down through the ages, time immemorial, and now we're proving that these events actually happen with science. And so back to the precession of the equinoxes, and where are we? Well, we're right here on the cusp here. We're right here on the sea level fall event, which is catastrophic. time again and again and again. In 52,000 years, there was a Heinrich event. 104,000 years ago was the Greenland Blitz, and 26,000 years ago was the onset of the late Wisconsinian Ice Age. So we could be headed into a major ice age based on the past. And that's what the past is saying. That's what the Great Year is predicting. Okay, follow us as we uncover this. I'll leave links to Alchemy of Time, Understanding the Great Year and the Cycles of Existence, and also links to where the Great Year comes up in the Bible. I'll also leave you the Wikipedia to the Great Year and the commentary on Hamlet's Mill. Now let's talk about the evidence we have on these catastrophic events, these precessional cycles, which I see in the geologic record and had studied for decades. We now know that the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is not a hypothesis. It's true. Just the simple fact that most of North America was lit on fire and is covered with iridium and other cosmic debris, nanodiamonds, shock quartz, microspherules. So an event happened at 12,900 years before present that dropped global temperature at least 5 degrees C or more instantly. In fact, it froze mammoths that were still chewing their food in northern parts of Siberia. We know that. The evidence is overwhelming now. And that for 1,200 years, it was frozen, and then all of a sudden, boom, it warmed up, and it's been warm ever since. In fact, we're in the longest period of climate quiescence in recorded history for the last 400,000 years. And if we're listening to the ancients in Gobekli Tepe, where they buried the information and we're not being told about it, they were warning about what's happening. The ancients were warning about what happens at these flexure points during the Great Year. These are times of climatic instability, and that's what we know based on science. The Heinrich events, the Dansgaard-Oeschger events, and the Bond events. Now, I've been working on this chart here. I'm going to share it with you for the first time ever. We have the Vostok data, and this is really good data. And what I'm about to show you is probably never been done, but I think everyone needs to see it. So this is the Vostok data where there's added solar insolation here. And you know how I feel about the sun as a driver of climate. What you're looking at in these numbered regions are the last 15 great years. The great years of catastrophe, as described by the ancients. And what you may be looking at is actually 15 civilizations that were humans that we lost again and again and again and again and again and again and again. The most recent civilization lost that we're being lied about. And here we are, number one, the only ones in this time of quiet, about to end the great year at the flexure point, going into the sea level drop. There is no other evidence of what is going to happen than the evidence you have before you. This is the history of the last 400,000 years, and the last 330,000 years of which we can actually map out the last 15 great years, which are the last 15 civilizations that have been obliterated from the planet, and we have learned nothing. We've never learned from our mistakes. It happens again and again and again and again and again and again. Just like I found everywhere. In every basin, in every sedimentary environment on the planet. The great year does not lie, does not stop for anyone, and has been warned about time immemorial by civilizations who have been destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed and rebuilt forever. Guys, if you have any questions, leave them down in the under the video. Thanks for watching.